Hare Krishna. Om Jnana-Timandasya Jnana-Shalakaya Sakshvamritam Yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namah. Shri-Chaitanya-Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svam Rupakadamyam Dadati Svam Padantikam. Vandeyam Shiru Shri-Yuda Padakamalam Shirum Vaishnavam Sham Shri Rupam Sarajatam Sakanaragnatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Satvetam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sakanadita Shivishakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandha Jyapate Gopesha Goprakanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanashri Vrishabhana Sutadevi Panamana Vankakalpa Vishakhe Pasinve Vishapatnam Papanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastana Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Srinavadi Paskachai Kintakesatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki. So, the second part of the lesson yesterday of the reading, we heard that Yudhishthira Maharaj was surprised. He said, this Shishupal, he blasphemed Krishna, and I saw him how he entered the body of Krishna. He got liberation, a position that great jnanis and yogis rarely achieve. How is that? And then Narada Muni explained first that yes, this blasphemy and praise, this is the situation. This is caused by ignorance. So this is the bodily concept of life. And he said, yes, when one is in the bodily concept of life, then one considers one's relationship with the body. That's the all in all. And in that state, one is subjected to the dualities of the world. And Narada Muni says that yes, when the conditioned soul projects his duality in the Supreme Lord, his own false conception of I and mine in the Supreme Lord, then that is incorrect. Then one cannot understand when the Lord chastises the demons or accepts prayers from his devotees. It's both for their good. That the Lord is not affected by blasphemy or something like that. No. And then we came up at verse 26. That's where we ended up last time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Tasmat varana bandena nirvarena vayena va snehat kamena valyum yat katanshin nexate pitach. Therefore, by enmity or devotional service, by fear, by affection, or by lusty desires, by all of these or any of them, if a conditioned soul somehow or other concentrates its mind upon the Lord, the result is the same. For the Lord, because of his blissful position, is never affected by enmity or friendship. So that's interesting. That this is in the purport. It's a long purport. That Krishna, Srila Prabhupada stresses that Bhakti Yoga must be Anukulyena Krishnanusilanam. One should serve Lord Krishna favorably. Sisupal's achievement of oneness with the Supreme Lord was different, Srila Prabhupada said. Because Jai and Vijay, from the very beginning of their material existence, they were ordained to treat the Supreme Lord as their enemy for 3 lives and then return home back to Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada says here that this is an exceptional case here. It's Shishupal and Dandavraka were Jai and Vijay, and they were ordered by the Lord to come 3 times as enemy of the Lord. So that we heard that in previous cantos, the 3rd canto, I think, that or was it the 4th, not sure. Jai and Vijay inwardly knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they purposely became his enemies to be delivered from material life. That from the beginning of their lives, they thought of Krishna as an enemy. Even though blaspheming Lord Krishna, they chanted the holy name of Krishna constantly along with their inimical thoughts. Thus they were purified of chanting the holy name. So that's the point that's stressed here. That if a conditioned soul somewhere or another concentrates his mind upon the Lord, the result is the same for the Lord because of his blissful position. He's never affected by enemy of friendship. But the stress is given here to favorable execution of devotional service, not purposeful blasphemy of the Lord. So further, therefore freedom is assured for a devotee who is always favorable to the service of the Lord. This will be clear from the following verse. By rapt attention fixed upon Krishna, one is purified and one is delivered from material life. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very nicely explained the word bhayena, means fear. When the gopis went to Krishna in the dead of the night, they certainly feared chastisement of their relatives, their husbands, brothers and fathers, but nonetheless, not caring for their relatives, they went to Krishna. There was certainly fear, but this fear could not check their devotional service to Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada gives a warning. One should not try to be killed by embracing an enemy, a tiger or a snake, or should not blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead and become his enemy in order to be put into hellish life. The purpose of this verse is to emphasize that even the enemy of the Lord can be delivered, not to speak of his friend. But Vajay also says in many ways that one should not blaspheme Lord Vishnu through one's mind, words, or actions, for a blasphemer will go to hellish life along with his forefathers. So further, the conclusion is that one should not give up pure devotional service. For one's own benefit, one should not imitate Hiranyakashipu or Sisupal. This is not a way to achieve success. So Sisupal's achievement of oneness with the Supreme was different. Srila Prabhupada stresses here, because Jai and Vijay, from the very beginning of their material existence, they were ordained to treat the Lord as an enemy. They followed the Lord's instructions for 3 lives. So if we are not instructed to treat the Lord as an enemy, we should certainly not do that. But they were instructed for 3 lives, and then they would return and go back to Godhead. Jai and Vijay inwardly knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they purposely became his enemies to be delivered from material life. So then Srila Prabhupada refers to 16:19 Bhagavad Gita. If one blasphemes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is punished. That anything done by those who have taken the attitude of enemies will be baffled. Mogasa. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita. Mogasa moga karamano moga jnana vshetasa rakshasimasram chive parati moinim shrija. If these enemies try to be liberated or to merge into the existence of Brahman, if they desire to be elevated to higher planetary systems as karmis, or even if they desire to return back to Godhead, they will certainly be baffled. But for Hiranyakashipu, although he was extremely inimical towards the personality of Godhead, what was the point there? He was always thinking of Prahlad, his son. And Prahlad was a great devotee. Therefore, by the grace of his son Prahlad, Hiranyakashipu was also delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's an interesting comment. But now in the next verse, 27, in 27, that Srinivas Gopal Prabhu says that my voice is not clearly audible. Do you agree all? You don't hear me? Please?
Sometimes it's not clear, Maharaj.
Sometimes
it was only clear. Momentarily, Maharaj.
Yeah, I think sometimes my internet becomes a little weak, but if it would occur again, then I will stop my video and hopefully it's better than we go only with the hearing. But for the moment it seems okay. Now in text 27, that there Narada Muni, it goes deeper in this in this point. He says, I will read the verse. Yata varanu bandhena martyastam mayatam yat natata bhakti yogena itime nishitamati. Narada Muni continued, by devotional service, one cannot achieve such intense absorption in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one can through enmity toward him. That is my opinion. So if there is anger and one is angry of someone, really, then the concentration becomes very intense. The concentration becomes very intense. We will go with questions after the presentation. We will have a lot of time for questions afterwards. So please save. No need to raise your hand right now. So through enmity towards the Lord, one can achieve an absorption in thought of the Lord, which is more intense than just absorption in thought of the Supreme Lord. So Narada Muni recommends that one some way or another becomes absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, somewhere or another. For that will save one from the dangers of material existence. You have here this enmity that gives a deeper absorption in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is an interesting point. That so, of course, that so in the purport that Srila Prabhupada addresses the point of humility. That Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he thinks himself in a humble way. Jagai Madai Haite Mune Se Papista, Puise Rakita Haite Mune Se Galista. I'm a worse sinner than Jagai and Madai, and I am even lower than the worms in the stool. So thinking about oneself in a humble way. So once Srila Prabhupada, he went to South India with Madhudvisa Swami at that time. The people was confused. He said, which of you is in charge? Then the devotee said, oh, Srila Prabhupada is in charge. And Srila Prabhupada replied, as you like. So they were thinking that the sannyasi with the danda was in charge, but Srila Prabhupada said, as you like. Yes. It says further, thus Narada Muni says that according to his opinion, the enemies of Krishna are better situated because they are absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, of killing them, just like a lusty man always thinks of women and their association. So the point Narada Muni is making is, it makes their concentration on Krishna more intense. Here further that we have the anxiety of Mother Yasoda, that the gopis are absorbed in thoughts at home, although Krishna in a way is away from them. Similarly, when Krishna plays with his young friends, Mother Yasoda is very much disturbed by the thoughts that Krishna, because of always playing and not taking his food properly, must get weak. So this is the anxiety of a mother. A mother is always concerned, are you eating enough? And anxiety of the gopis. They felt one nimesha like 10,000 years of separation. For the gopis, the blinking of an eye was getting in the way of their meditation, and they cursed Brahma. So our prison is false ego, jiva kosa. So this is from the 10th canto, chapter 82, text 47. Shri Sukha Vacha Adhyatma Sikshaya Gopya Evan Krishnena Shikshita Tat Anusmaranat Vasta Jiva Kosa Tat Atyagam. Yeah. This Jiva Kosa is the subtle covering of the soul. Sukadeva Goswami said this: having thus been instructed by Krishna in spiritual matters, the gopis were freed from all tinge of false ego because of their incessant meditation upon him. And with their deepening absorption in him, they came to understand him fully. So that's, yeah, their incessant meditation. Purport: the consciousness of the living entity who falsely presents himself as the enjoyer of the material world is called jiva kosa, which means imprisonment by the false ego. Not only the gopis, but anyone who follows these instructions of Krishna becomes immediately freed from the jiva kosa imprisonment. So, what was this instruction? I repeat it again. If you want to become free from your false ego, that's Krishna instructed the gopis. Said always, yeah. He said you are free from your false ego because of incessant meditation. We see that also in the 3rd canto. Uddhava speaking to Vidura 3:2-23. Said, that's interesting, that because Vidura thinks the demons are better than me. He says, I consider the demons were inimical toward the Lord to be more than the devotees, because while fighting with the Lord, absorbed in thoughts of enmity, they are able to see the Lord carried on the shoulder of Garuda, the son of Tatya Kashyap, and carrying the wheel weapon in his hand. So we see that demons and impersonalists, they are awarded the facility of merging in the Brahmajyota effulgence of the Lord, whereas the devotees, they are going to one of the planets in the spiritual sky. So Uddhava and Bhishmadev, he said, the demons are more fortunate because they see Krishna face to face. Arjuna saw always only the back of Krishna, at least during the Battle of Kurukshetra. That's an interesting point. The salvation of the demons is due to their being devotees of the Lord. It is because of the Lord's causeless mercy. Anyone who is slightly in touch with the Lord, slightly in touch, somewhere or other, is greatly benefited, even to the point of salvation, due to the excellence of the Lord. He is so kind that he awards salvation even to his enemies, because they come in contact with him and are indirectly absorbed in him by inimical thoughts. Actually, of course, the demons can never be equal to pure devotees. That's not possible. But Uddhav was thinking in that way because of his feelings of separation. He was thinking that at the last stage of his life, he might not be able to see the Lord face to face, as did the demons who were killed by Krishna. But now we will hear from Narada Muni an important analogy that and Srila Prabhupada discusses this analogy in the purport that text 28 and 29. Kita pesha kita ruda kutyayam tam anushmaran samramba bhaya yohena vindate tat svarupatam evam krishne bhagavati maya manucha ishvari vairana puta papmanas tam apo anusintaya. Translation. A grassworm confined in a hole of a wall by a bee always thinks of the bee in fear. A grassworm. So you can hear. This is a hole that so the grassworm is confined in such a hole, as you see on the screen now, but it's a hole of a wall. So confined in a hole of the wall by a bee. So outside is a bee, and it's waiting to the grassworm to come out. And the grassworm inside thinks of the bee in fear and enmity, and later becomes a bee simply because of such remembrance. So that's the point Narada Muni is making here. Similarly, if the conditioned soul somewhere other thinks of Krishna, who is Satchitananda Vigraha, they will become free from their sins. Whether thinking of him as their worshipful Lord or enemy, because of constantly thinking of him, they will regain their spiritual bodies. So the grassworm in a hole thinks of the bee and becomes a bee. So two ways of thinking of Krishna are mentioned here. One as a devotee, one as an enemy. Bhujam Prabhu said, this is the route to Raganuga Bhakti. Bhakti Mach. Always think of Krishna and never forget him. That's an interesting remark, that the Raganugas must always think of Krishna. That the caterpillar species is related to this worm. The caterpillar weaves a cocoon, and then his body dies and transforms into a butterfly. So the root of Raganuga Bhakti, that's when this is the root of Raganuga Bhakti, because when the wasp catches a bug and seals it into a wall, the bug's consciousness is filled with terror. It transforms into that which it is meditating on. So the bug transforms into a wasp. So our hope is that we will transform from caterpillar into butterfly. If we are stuck in caterpillar consciousness, we won't become butterflies. We must focus on being a servant of Krishna and fix our mind on Krishna in that mood. We need to give up our aham mameti, I and mine. We must die to live. Not that there is nothing after death. That's illusion, Anatta Mishra. We need to transform ourselves. So by the end of the 9th canto, we should all be sufficiently transformed to give up our false ego. And then we will be able to relish the 10th canto. So this purport is a very important one, 28-29, and I will read it. So in Bhagavad Gita 4:10, the Lord says, Vitaraya Bhaya Krodha, Manmaya Mama Pashvita, Bhavo Gana Tapasa, Putamad Bhavam Agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me. And thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So there are two ways of thinking of Krishna here. So it's as a devotee or an enemy. A devotee, of course, by his knowledge and tapasya becomes free from fear and anger and becomes a pure devotee. Similarly, an enemy, although thinking of Krishna inimically, thinks of him constantly and becomes purified. This is confirmed also in Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Abhisacya characha bhajanti mamananya bhak sadrev samantavya samyak vyavasitoisa. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, is considered saintly because he is properly situated. The devotee undoubtedly worships the Lord with rapt attention. Similarly, even enemies, Sudarachara, always thinks of Krishna, he becomes a purified devotee. This example gives here concerns to the gas form that becomes bee-like because of constantly thinking of the bee that forces it to enter a hole. That at the end of the purport, thinking of Krishna, hearing the holy name of Krishna, or hearing the pastimes of Krishna will make one pure, and then he will become a devotee. Our Krishna conscious movement is therefore trying to introduce a system somewhere or other, letting everyone hear the holy name of Krishna and take Krishna's prasad, and thus one will gradually become a devotee and will be successful. So now the Muni continues in text 30. Kama, this is a very important verse which is quoted many times by Srila Prabhupada, that used also to be a memorization verse for the Bhaktivedanta. I don't know in this course, but yes, Kamat Veshabayat Snehat Yata Bhaktyas Varemana Havasya Tattagam Mitva Bhavat Tam Tat Gatim Gata. Many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feelings, fear, affection, or devotional service. I shall now explain how one receives Krishna's mercy, simply by concentrating one's mind upon him. So that's the next verse. So here it is said, great attention may be due to lusty desires, or inimical feelings, or affection, or devotional service. So the point is to absorb the mind in Krishna somewhere or another. And if one does that, then the material part is very soon vanquished, and the spiritual It's just the spiritual part, which is the attraction for Krishna, becomes manifest. So this indirectly confirms that if one thinks of Krishna enviously, simply because of thinking of Krishna, it becomes free from all sinful reactions and thus becomes a pure devotee. I will read some verses and purpose of the Adi Lila Chaitanya Chaitamrita, that which is further clarifies this point. Adi Lila chapter 5 verses 35-39. As through devotion to the Lord one can attain his abode, many have attained that goal by abandoning their sinful activities and absorb their mind in the Lord's thought, lust, envy, fear, or affection. Purport. Even if one is attracted by Godhead in the mode of material lust, such attraction is converted into spiritual love of Godhead by His grace. Similarly, if one is related to the Lord in fear and animosity, he also becomes purified by spiritual attraction to the Lord. Text 36, Adi Lila, chapter 5, 36. Where it has been stated that the Lord's enemies and devotees attain the same destination, this refers to the ultimate oneness of Brahman and Lord Krishna. This may be understood by the example of the sun and sunshine, in which Brahman is like the sunshine and Krishna is like the sun. Purport. This verse is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12278 of Srila Rupa Goswami, who further discusses the same topic in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Purva 541. There he refers to the Vishnu Purana 4.14.1, where Maitreya Muni asked Parasar in regard to Jai and Vijay how it was that Hiranyakasipu next became Ravan and enjoyed more material happiness than the demigods, but it did not attain salvation. Although, when he became Sisupal, he quarreled with Krishna and was killed, he attained salvation and merged into the body of Krishna. So how is that? That's an interesting point. That Parasar replied that Hiranyakasipu failed to recognize that Lord Nrsimhadev was Lord Vishnu. So he did not recognize that Lord Nrsimhadev was Vishnu. That's interesting. He thought that Nrsimhadev was some living entity who has acquired such opulence by various pious activities. Being overcome by the mode of passion, he considered Lord Nrsimhadev an ordinary living entity, not understanding his form. Nevertheless, because Hiranyakasipu was killed by the hands of Lord Nrsimhadev, in his next life he became Ravan and had proprietorship of unlimited opulence. As Ravan, with unlimited material enjoyment, he could not accept Lord Rama as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the same thing happened. Therefore, even though he was killed by Ram, he did not attain Sayuja, oneness with the body of the Lord. In his Ravana body, he was too much attracted to Ram's wife, Janaki, and because of that attraction, he was able to see Lord Ram. But instead of accepting Lord Ram as an incarnation of Vishnu, Ravan thought him an ordinary living being. When killed by the hands of Ram, therefore, he got the privilege to take birth as Sisupal, who had such immense opulence that he could think himself a competitor of Krishna. Although Sisupal was always anxious of Krishna, he frequently uttered the name of Krishna and always thought of the beautiful features of Krishna. Thus, by constantly thinking and chanting of Krishna, even unfavorably, he was cleansed of the contamination of his sinful activities. When Sisupal was killed by the Sudarshan Chakra of Krishna as an enemy, his constant remembrance of Krishna dissolved the reactions of his vices, and he attained salvation by becoming one with the body of the Lord. So those who aspire to merge in Brahman effulgence are abominable as demons. So here, Srila Prabhupada concludes you have the same category, that devotees who aspire to associate with the Supreme Lord, to render him transcendental loving service, they are far superior. Text 37. Thus in the spiritual sky, there are varieties of pastimes within the spiritual energy. Outside the Vaikuntha planets appears the impersonal reflection of light. 38. The impersonal Brahman effulgence consists only of the effulgence rays of the Lord. Those fit for Saucha liberation merge into that effulgence. Beyond that duration of ignorance, the material cosmic manifestation lies the realm of Siddhaloka. The Siddhas reside there absorbed in bliss of Brahman. Demons killed by the Lord also attain that realm. Purport. Mayavadi philosophers who aspire to merge with the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as demoniac persons who are killed by Krishna, such as Kamsa and Sisupal, enter that Brahman effulgence. Yogis who attain oneness through meditation according to the Patanjali yoga system also reach Siddhaloka. This is a verse from the Brahmanda Purana. So in other words, that Sisupal went into the Brahmajyoti. That so to enter the spiritual world, Anukulyena Krishna. One must serve Krishna favorably. That so unless one has that favorable attitude of devotional service, one cannot enter in Vaikuntha Goloka Vrindavan, but they merge in the impersonal Brahman. That so now this we have text 31. Yeah, this is also a very famous verse. Kopya kamat bayat kamso veshat satya dayo nipa sabandhat Krishna sneha yuyam bhaktya payam vibho. My dear King Yudhishthir, the gopis by their lusty desires, Kamsa by his fear, Sisupal and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familial relationship with Krishna, and you, the Pandavas, by your great affection for Krishna, and we, the general devotees, by our devotional service, have obtained the mercy of Krishna. So different persons achieve different types of mukti here. Sayucha, Salokya, Sarupya, and Saksti, according to their own desire, which is called bhav. And we are here, and we will go through it. We will hear the commentaries of Jiva Goswami on this. That because I think that we will this verse, we will go up to text 32 today. So we have a lot of commentaries here. This is Jiva Goswami on this verse. So Jiva Goswami. This is from the Priti Sandarbha. That Priti Sandarbha. on this verse, 7.131, Anucheda 99. So there it is said, the various groups of people, this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam that he quotes, 10th canto. The various groups of people in the arena of the wrestling match regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. So the men of Mathura, they saw Krishna as the best of males. And the women saw Krishna as Cupid in person. The coward men saw them as their relative. The impious rulers, they saw Krishna as a chastiser. Krishna's parents saw Krishna as their child. And the king of the Bojats, they saw Krishna as deaf, of course. And the intelligent, they saw him unintelligent. They saw him as the Lord's universal form. So the yogis, they saw him as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis as their supreme worshipable deity. So in this verse, Jiva Goswami says there are three kinds of people described. First, you have the enemies of the Lord. Yeah. They are pretty cool. And then you have the fools, the second category. They are the Mudas. And then you have the third category, the wise philosophers, the Vidvan. So who are the enemies of the Lord? They are the wrestlers, who are enemies of the all-loving Supreme. You have the king, that were all Kamsa's allies, and you have King Kamsa. These are the enemies. And who are the fools? The fools are the persons who see Krishna as the universal form. And the wise are all the other persons mentioned in this verse. So the mention of the universal form, Jiva Goswami says, refers to the idea that the Lord's form is made of material elements, and thus is part of the universal form. This is the idea of unintelligent person. Of these fools, some ignore the Lord's request. Those are like the Brahmins who did the Jahyas, which is described in the 10th canto. And Krishna and the coward boys on behalf of Krishna and Balaram were asking them for food, and they said, no, go away, this is too serious business, all these technical details of this Jagya, no time. So there are other fools who are insult the Lord. Still other of these fools neither hate nor like the Lord. The devotees are horrified by the idea that the Supreme Lord has a body made of matter. The truth is that the Supreme Lord uses this idea to nourish the Bibat Ras, the Ras of Or. In this verse, the word Ninambara means ordinary people think of the Supreme Lord because of his sweetness, power, and opulence, that he is the best of human beings. In this idea, there is some wisdom that the ordinary devotees may sometimes love the Lord according to this idea. So this is described in 10:43:20. Nirikshatvav utama purusho jana maya sita nagarakshanipam Yeah. I have only the first lines. Thinking them to be the best of human beings. The people in the arena gazed at Krishna and Balaram. O king, the people's eyes and faces blossomed bright with happiness, the best of human beings. Although they were citizens in the Lord city, because they did not have the conception that the Lord is mine, these people of Mathura were not, at least at that time, on the level of Palya, devotees who consider themselves protected by the Lord. However, many other devotees, what to speak of the gopis, do not have the kind of love for the Lord where one thinks the Lord is mine. That in this verse, the word Nrinam means ordinary devotees. The word Yoginam means the 4 Kumaras and the Jagni Bhaktas who are staying in the sky and they yearn to see the Lord's pastimes. The Jnani Bhaktas, yeah. These devotees do not have the idea that the Lord is mine. Then he quotes Srimad Bhagavatam 10:44-6. Tad bala bala vatyudam samita sarvajosita uchyapaspram rajan sanukampa vautacha. My dear king, all the women present, considering the much an unfair fight between the strong and the weak, they felt excited due to compassion. They assembled in groups around the arena and spoke to one another as follows. What comparison can there be between these two professional wrestlers with limbs as strong as lightning bolts and bodies resembling mighty mountains, and these two young immature boys with exceedingly tender limbs? The women, Srina, who spoke these words, were filled with compassion and love for the Lord. They saw Lord Krishna as Cupid personified. It is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam. Jiva Goswami quotes the first verse of the verse. Gopyastapaki Macharam. What austerities must the gopis have performed? With their eyes, they always think of the nectar of Lord Krishna's form, which is the essence of loveliness, and is not be equaled or surpassed. That loveliness is the only abode of beauty, fame, and opulence. It is self-perfect, ever fresh, and extremely rare. So, amorous love felt by even the most exalted of material girls in the world is always love mixed with other things. That love is not pure. It's not like the love of the gopis feel. That ordinary love will eventually break in course of time. Then the lover will no longer think, my beloved is mine. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:43-17 are mentioned the Vrishnis, the gopis, and Lord Krishna's parents. They all very strongly think the Supreme Lord is mine. That Hamam, yeah, Mameti, that's the Lord is mine. That's a correct idea. A spiritual application of mine. The Lord is mine. Amongst devotees who directly perceive the Supreme Lord's sweetness, they are the most exalted. Now the word Gopanam, Svachana, and Vrishinam Paradevata will be discussed. The word Shri Gopinam refers to the Gopas, who perceive the sweetness of the Lord in relationships of being his friend and kinsman. The words Gopaman, Svachana, and Vrishinam Paradevata describe how, thinking of the Lord as their supreme deity, the Vrishnis, they were aware of the Lord's feature of supreme opulence. So this is also described in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam 7.1.31, Sambandha Vishnaya. Because of their family relationship, the Vaishnavas attained the mercy of the Lord. From this, it may be seen that for the Vaishnavas, the most important element of their relationship with the Lord was their family relationship with them. Their perception of his supreme opulence was less important. Furthermore, among the Vaishnavas were some very lowly persons like Kamsa, who became the Lord's enemies, and also some fools like Chatardanya. About the Vaishnavas, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.23, Namyam Vidanti Ami Buddha Ekaramasha Vishnaya. Neither these kings nor even the Vaishnavas who enjoy your intimate association know you as the soul of all existence, the force of time and supreme controller, for you are covered by the curtain of Maya. Of the exalted Vaishnavas, Devaki and Vasudeva are the best. They have the best knowledge of the Supreme Lord's opulence. However, because in the Lord's pastime, they became his parents, Devaki and Vasudev also had great knowledge of the Lord's sweetness. For them, awareness of the Lord's opulence and supremacy is less important than awareness of his sweetness. This is seen in the following words of Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.30. Natichitam idam vipra vasudevi babutsaya Krishna matvarpakam yana prichati cheya atmana. O Brahmins, is it not so amazing that in his eagerness to know, Vasudev has asked us about his ultimate benefit because he considers Krishna a mere boy. In this verse, Narada does not specifically praise Devaki and Vasudeva for thinking of the Lord as their son. However, Maharaj Pariksit does indeed praise Yasoda and Nanda for having that same thought. The king says in 10.8.46, Nanda kim akarot Brahman, or learned Brahman. For the Yasoda's breast was sucked by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What past auspicious activities did she and Nanda Maharaj perform to achieve such perfection in ecstatic love? From the moment of the Lord's birth, Devaki and Vasudeva were aware of his opulence. Still, their awareness of his sweetness was more important. This is confirmed by Srila Sridhar Swami, who in his commentary in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.48.1 explains that although Devaki and Vasudeva were certainly aware of the Lord's opulence, their love of him as their son was a more rare and valuable attainment for them. This is also true for the Gopas. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.43.17 explains in the words Si Gopanam Svachana. The coward men saw Lord Krishna as their relative. The coward people were not like Kamsa and the other enemies of the Lord. The coward people were overcome with love for Krishna. This is seen in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam 10.16.15. Aballa vritti vanita sarvah pashu vrittaya nirchak murko kalatina Krishna darsana lallasa. All the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the children, women, and elderly persons, thought of Krishna just as a cow thinks of a helpless young calf. And thus these poor suffering people rushed out of the village, intent upon finding him. So Nanda Maharaj was situated in the most exalted eternal parental love for the Lord. the Lord personally became his son, what more is to be said? So these three kinds of persons are described here. That first, enemies of the Lord, the wrestlers who are enemies of the all-pervading personality of the all-loving Supreme Lord. Enemies, the second were the fools, those who see Krishna as the universal form. And then you have the wise philosophers, the Vidvan, other persons mentioned in this verse. So then we have 10:43:17. There we heard this verse already, but we will go through it again. 10:43:17. The various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered in it with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt, the men of Mathura as the best of males, the women as Cupid in person, the coward man as their relative, the impious rulers as his chastiser, his parents as their child, the kings of the Bhojas as deaf, the unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form, the yogis as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis as their supreme worshipable deity. So Sridhar Swami, he this differentiates here 10 different moods. The first, the wrestlers, they were in fury, great anger. And then the men in general, they were in wonder. Oh, what does Krishna do there? And the women, they felt conjugal attraction. And then the cowards, the coward man, they were in the rasa laughter. And the kings, they were in a mood of chivalry. The parents of Krishna, they were in a mood of mercy. Kamsa was in a mood of terror. The unintelligence were in ghastliness. And the yogis in peaceful neutrality. And the Vrishnis loving devotion. Of course, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there Rupa Goswami gives 5 rasas: neutrality, servitude, friendship, parental and conjugal, and 7 secondary rasas: amazement, humor, chivalry, compassion, ghastliness, fear, and death. So we will now read text 32, because then that's the last verse we will deal with today. And then so text 32. Katamapena venasyat panchanam purusham prati tasmakena upayena mana Krishna nishevayat. Somehow or other, one must consider the form of Krishna very seriously. Then by one of the 5 different processes mentioned above, one can return home back to Godhead. That atheists like King Vena, however, being unable to think of Krishna in any of these 5 ways, cannot attain salvation. Therefore, one must somehow think of Krishna, whether in a friendly way or inimically. So King Vena is mentioned here. That King Vena, so the atheists like King Vena were unable to think of Krishna's form in any of these 5 ways. And therefore, he could not attain salvation. Therefore, somewhere or another, and Krishna and actually Prabhupada stresses that in the purport again and again, somewhere or another, one should think of Krishna, whether in a friendly way or inimical. So great politicians and philosophers of the modern age even try to banish Krishna from Bhagavad Gita. There are so many. And consequently, for them there is no salvation. So King Vena was unable to think of Krishna's form in any of the 5 ways mentioned in this verse. The conclusion is think of Krishna, whether in a friendly or inimical way. That's the message here. One way or another, think of Krishna. The regulative principle is one must always think of Krishna, whether as a friend or enemy. That we see today, well, also in India, everything has become secular. Many schools, Bhagavad Gita is banished. So that's difficult. We have heard, of course, in the 6th canto, the previous canto, Ajamil was engaging his mind in Krishna at the time of death. That he named his son Narayan, and he got purified by chanting the names of his son. So even today in Hindu families, it's custom to give a name of the Lord to their son. So in this regard, I will read Srila Prabhupada's purport on Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 12, 11. All the boys would be differently engaged. Some boys blew their flutes, another blew bugles made of horn. Some imitated the buzzing of the bumblebees, another imitating the voice of a cuckoo. Some boys imitated flying birds by running after the birds' shadows on the ground. Some imitated the beautiful movements and attractive postures of the swans. Some sat down with the ducks, sitting silently. Another imitated the dancing of the peacocks. Some boys attracted young monkeys in the tree. Some jumped into the tree, imitating the monkeys. Some made faces as the monkeys were accustomed to do. Another jumped from one branch to another. Some boys went to the waterfalls and crossed over the river, jumping with the frogs. And when they saw their own reflections on the water, they would laugh. They would also condemn the sound of their own echoes. In this way, all the cowherd boys used to play with Krishna, who is the source of the Brahman effulgence for the jnanis, desiring to merge into that effulgence, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the devotees by accepted eternal servitorship, and who for ordinary persons is but another ordinary child. The cowherd boys have accumulated the results of pious activities for many lives. They were able to associate with the Lord. So how can one explain their great fortune? So I read a lot of commentaries, especially from Jiva Goswami. This is just to help to understand these verses through their commentaries. It's not something you must remember, that no need to know all these commentaries, but it clarifies the verses that so someone writes that so we will read privately before class, else at least your class to relate better to catch your mood. No need to catch my mood. I'm a low-fallen person. That's not necessary. I read this, and I hope you have caught some of the mood of Shiva Goswami. That's all. That so you can hear them again and note yourself the references down from the recording, which I will post tomorrow. That it's good to hear this again and again. That also these commentaries, that it will give gradually a deeper insight. By once hearing them, that will not give the deeper feeling. But the message is very clear here. Yes, there are different forms of meditation on the Lord and different conceptions. And according to their different meditations and concentrations, they get different kinds of liberation. But that depends on their desires, on their mood, and their understanding of the Supreme Lord. So now we can go to the screen. And we have a question there. Explain which points Narada illustrated by putting forward the example of the grass worm being captured by a bee. So I would say, to give everyone a chance to answer that question, try to answer that question in 2 sentences and put it in the chat. So in the meantime, because it's now 5:15, we will resume at 5:25. And in the meantime, you can also write these questions and put it in the chat. And then we will together look at it. And did we all understand it in the same way? Just 2 sentences to clarify this. Thank you. So we'll be back online at 5:25. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we are here again. Thank you for all your comments in the chat. We will read of them, some of them. Analogy, Krishna is pure, so by concentrating, absorbing on him, one gets purified of all material contaminations. That is an important aspect of the analogy, that it's also about the form the grass worm will attain by that meditation. Maharaj Prabhu says, one's mental state converts into tangible reality wherever there is an opportunity, meaning if one constantly thinks of Krishna, anyhow attains liberation. Yeah, becoming purified means attaining liberation. Thus, one is completely pure. Gopal Prabhu, one gets purified and he gets in contact with Suddha Sattva, either unequal or pratical. Suddha Sattva is transcendental. But here it is specifically related to the transcendental form of the Lord. But yes, whatever is transcendence, we come in contact, we become purified. So when one's mind is invested and absorbed in Krishna, one gets transformed with the nature of Krishna. Puttamadbhavam agataha. Yeah, Puttamadbhavam agataha. Vitraya Bhayakrita Manmaya Mama Pashvita. Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Puttamadbhavam agataha. That, right. Mitravinda says the importance of always thinking of Krishna. That's the Srila Prabhupada writes, so that's the regulative principle. That always think of Krishna, never forget him. Hemagopi, whether thinking of him as a worshipful Lord or as an enemy, because of constantly thinking of him, they will regain their spiritual bodies. That's the point made here, that the spiritual form they will get. We have seen these different examples in the arena of the wrestlers. There you have these different conceptions of who Krishna is. So that's also important in terms of what spiritual position we will, what kind of liberation we will attain. That the conception of who Krishna is in our meditation. Like Shishupal, yeah, got Sayuja Mukti, that, yeah, but Shishupal's inimical mode is surely purified. It's correct, because when you become purified, you come out of the body conception of life, you come out of the duality of raga, dvesha, attachment, aversion. Ankamoini. Just as the grass form is absorbed in thinking of the bee as his enemy, an enemy of Krishna is absorbed in thinking of him. Any meditation on Krishna as a devotee or enemy can liberate one. Again, that's the main point made here. What kind of liberation means depends on our conception of Krishna. That how we relate to Krishna. Do we relate to him with the right understanding? That's important. That's the correct Sambandha Jnana. If the Sambandha Jnana is correct, that then we'll go back to the spiritual world. Shanmakama Sumedram Yome Vedi Tattvatam. Yeah, so one must understand who Krishna is. That there are partial understandings, fully understandings. But if thinking of him as a devotee, as an enemy, one will be freed from all sorts of fear and anger and advance in spiritual life. Yes, that one will advance spiritually. But spiritual life means acting as a spirit soul, really. understanding who Krishna is and what our relationship is with Krishna. Mother Shalangi, even an enemy who thinks of Krishna constantly will also be purified. An enemy can also become a purified devotee by thinking of Krishna. Both the demons and devotees attain liberations from the clutches of Maya. Yes, that then Nitai Madhav. The principle herein is that of meditation of the Lord one achieves the destination of his contemplation, like the grassworm becoming the bee, and the conditional souls attaining the nature of the Lord. Satchidananda, yes. Maharaj Prabhu. It is the absorption on a certain aspects which makes us like that. If we have absorbed our minds in Krishna, we will attain the consciousness of Krishna. Very simple but truthful. Devakinandam Prabhu. The essential point in this connection is that one should be fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna 24 hours a day. Good. Yeah, that's true. Not easy in this world. That 24 hours a day, but therefore Srila Prabhupada gave a program in our temples. If we follow that, we attain all the programs, and then we will come quickly close to that. We just have to follow Prabhupada's program. By remembering Krishna, one will become free from sins and attain Krishna's nature, right? Shri Harinam. By the constantly thinking of Krishna with concentration, one gets purified, like an iron rod in fire. Good, that's another analogy. Yes. So remembrance creates our next destination. Yes, Yam Yam Vapishwam Tian Tante Kalibram. But that's true on the material platform, but also on the spiritual platform, we see. Different destinations in the spiritual world. Interesting. Vimla Prasad, yeah. He has a few questions, he writes me. Okay, you can speak, Vimla Prasad.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I have quite a few questions from the start. It's like they are a little counterintuitive, actually. The basic principle, as we understand, like the devotional service, and this verses from verse number 26, 27.
Yeah.
Where like at the very outset, it apparently seems that like the verses, I mean, in the face value, they speak something else. It's like, I mean, the translations are like clear. Now, if I see it from the standpoint of a critic, so isn't it like we are a little defensive, like unless and until it's only when we read the purports of Prabhupada and Vishnu Chakravartipad, so they are explaining that like what he intends to say is different from what actually has been said, like in the translation. So in that sense, aren't we interpreting the verses?
And that's an interesting point you are making. That of course, Srila Prabhupada said also we need to look at the verses from different angles of view. That from different angles of understanding.
Vision,
yeah. So it is not that Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that, yes, this is the only understanding of this verse. No, but it gives us an understanding of points that we should learn from it. And that's important, yeah. Like in verse 26, I read the verse, therefore by enmity or by devotional service, by fear, by affection, or by lusty desires. By all of these, or any of them, if a conditioned soul somewhere or other concentrates its mind upon the Lord, the result is the same for the Lord, because of his blissful position is never affected by enmity or friendship. But Srila Prabhupada in the purpose said, oh, but be careful with understanding that in the correct light. He says, yes, because Krishna is unaffected by favorable prayers or unfavorable blasphemy. One should therefore blaspheme the Lord. No, this is not a regulated principle. So there is a danger that we understand it out of the context. And Srila Prabhupada brings it right. Because, yes, Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam. That, so he clarified this, that because otherwise we could think, oh, okay, why should we perform the devotional service? Just think of the Lord as your enemy. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada concludes, yes, the conclusion is that one should not give up devotional service for one's own benefit. One should not imitate Hiranyakashipu or Sisupal. This is not a way to achieve success. But I appreciate your point, because that means you have listened attentively. That and you noted that, so that's very good. Thank you for that. Now, before we go to Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu, who has also raised his hand, I want to go first to the slides. As if we go to the next one. Seems something happened with the screen somewhere, but don't know. Children have played with it. That interesting. But that's the answer on the question that I gave, that I got from the purports. Whether thinking of Lord Krishna as a friend or as an enemy, because of constantly thinking of him, they regain their spiritual bodies. Example, a grassworm confined in a hole of a wall by a bee, always thinking of the bee in fear, and later becomes a bee, simply because of such remembrance. An enemy, always thinking of Krishna inimically, thinks of the Lord constantly and becomes purified. And then that's a verse Srila Prabhupada quotes in the purport. Apachat Sudharacharo 9:30. Thinking of Krishna, hearing the holy name, hearing the pastimes of Krishna will make one pure, and then one will become a devotee. So that is the main message here. That yes, before we go to this next question, Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, in verses 23, 24 and 25, we hear that Krishna doesn't get affected by the praise of the devotees and the sarge words of the demons. But we do find that when Hiranyaksha speaks sarge words to Varadev, Lord feels bad about it. And similarly, we also pray to the Lord, hoping that Lord will be pleased by our prayers. So how do we reconcile both the things? Because if Lord is so neutral, then we may not feel like praying to the Lord.
Yeah, that is an important point you make. To understand this correctly, the Lord is Atmaram. He's self-satisfied. He does not need our prayers. He does not need our service, and so on. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, tamam papachate tamstate vajanam. I reciprocate. And that's what we learn here in these verses. The Lord is reciprocating not only by fixing our mind on Him, but by the mood in which we do that. And the Lord reciprocates with that. And He will express feelings that He exchanges. He speaks sweet words to the gopis. But that is the reciprocation with their mood. So Krishna reciprocates with us. But that reciprocation is to please his devotee, that's a very important point. That it's not that the Lord is without feelings, but it does not need to express feelings to get self-satisfaction. He expresses feelings to exchange, to have loving exchanges with his devotees. That yes, you see that also with the battle with there are so many Varadev and Yaksha, and he also reciprocates with their mood. That he reciprocates with Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu, that he was thinking, yes, that he could not believe that the Lord was in the pillar. And to reciprocate with Hiranyakashipu, the Lord appeared from it. He appeared for many reasons also. Prahlad saw him in the pillar. We'll see that further in this canto. But he reciprocates with his devotees in a loving exchange. And that is Krishna. But he's not affected by our prayers. He's Atmaram. He does not need to feel happy about it. He's always in full bliss. That's his spiritual nature. But to reciprocate with us. And that's so wonderful. Does that help to understand that, the Gargum?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Okay, Ravi Gopal Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Maharaj, actually in 26th verse, actually in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has been mentioning Bhagavad Gita slokas in which actually is telling actually the degraded people will further degrade and also they will have no chance to remember Krishna. He is mentioning so that there will not be any chance for them to grow. But in this current situation, Shishupala actually is in such a situation. He is very inimical and also he has been given Sahajya Mukti. And also in the case of actually, as you mentioned, it all depends on the bhava also. But in the case of Putana, actually, she has come and also she wanted to kill Krishna. With that intention, she came. But just because she acted as a mother, actually, Krishna has given liberation to her also. So basically, how we can understand Maharaj about these things?
Yeah, these are all. First of all, you may remember that we said in the presentation that the situation of Jai and Vijay was an extraordinary situation.
Yes, ma'am.
They were following the order of the Lord. They knew he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes, ma'am.
But you have to play this role. So they were not ordinary demons.
Yes, ma'am.
That so in that way, their situation is different. Putan, I don't remember the details, but she had a very pious life, previous lives are very pious. So we see only the moment, we see the demon, but what happened before? We see Vritrasur, but Vritrasur inside is a pure devotee. That
Yes.
because he was Chitraketu before. So these things, this is not easy to judge that, but at the other side, those who are real demons, and we spoke about Vena, he went to hell and suffered because he did not concentrate his mind on Krishna.
Yes, ma'am.
So that was completely gone. So yes, then they go to hellish life. So it's said in the purport. Srila Madhvacharya also says, in many ways, that one should not blaspheme Lord Vishnu through one's mind, words, or actions, for a blasphemer will go to hellish life along with his forefathers. So Krishna says that also in Bhagavad Gita, I will throw them in the most type of abominable existence. But it is also at the same time that Shishupal was in a different category. He was Jai of Vijay in previous life. That don't remember one of the two. But inside he was a devotee of Krishna, but he had to play that role, and therefore he was different. Yes. Anyway, I hope that helped a bit.
Yeah, I got it, Maharaj. I got it.
Okay. Thank you. Now we will go to this next question. We already answered it. Why did the result achieved by atheistic King Vena differ from those achieved by the atheistic King Shishupal? That King Venu, being unable to think of Krishna's form in any of these 5 ways, could not attain salvation. But Shishupal attained salvation, always enviously thinking of Krishna as his enemy. Except for Shishupal, those who go against regulative principles cannot attain salvation and are surely destined for hellish life. The regulative principle is that one must always think of Krishna, whether as a friend or as an enemy. So that's the point we have learned here. Explain how the Lord's actions towards Shishupal were actually merciful. So that's a good question. Who wants to reply to that question? Please raise your hands. So the Lord killed him with his chakra. How was he showing mercy to Shishupal by that?
Yeah, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj, Krishna Gati speak.
Yes, please speak, Krishna Gati Prabhu.
Yeah, by Lord decided to, by deciding to punish Shishupal, stopped him from committing more sins. He had already committed much sin, and Lord just didn't allow him to go for more, committing more offenses. That's why it was mercy of the Lord, I think.
So he went over the 100 mark that and Krishna put a limit there. That it certainly stopped him from blaspheming, further blaspheming. The good point. Other perspectives that, Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu.
He got purified of all the sins and even of the subtle body. He entered in the Krishna's body. Unlike Veena, who had to go to hell.
Can you say that again? Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu?
He got purified of his gross and subtle bodies, and he entered in Krishna's body.
Yeah.
So Veena had to go to hell, but Krishna didn't allow him to be punished by laws of nature, and that was a mercy.
Yeah, that it's certainly a mercy to get liberation. That very good. Navadvip Chandra Prabhu, please. Navadvip Chandra Prabhu, please speak.
Yes, Maharaj, I was thinking that he achieved a result which was not even possible really for other sages or those favorably trying to serve the Lord.
Yeah, that's true. The Jnanis and the Tapasvis and the Yogis, they go such a difficult process just to attain liberation. And here, this blasphemer of the Lord gets liberation. That's quite a mercy. Maharaj Prabhu, you want to add something to that?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I wanted to precisely say same thing that Navdeep Chandra Prabhu said.
Okay, good. Let's see what we have here as the answer. Narada Muni explained to Maharaj Yudhishthira that by entering Krishna's body, Shishupal entered Vaikuntha Loka as the Lord's associate. Everyone had seen the incident. That's the position of Narada Muni. Interesting. Different ways of seeing it. That there are just a few more comments in the chat of on that first point we made about the gas worm captured by the bee. This is from Hema Gopi. Verse 30 says, verse 30, let's go to verse 30. Many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention, giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feeling, fear, affection of devotion, service. How can someone inimical to the Lord still give up sinful activities? Yeah, and that's interesting. Sinful activities means sinful desires. That you have different stages of sin. That starts with the desire. And by fixing one's mind on the Lord, like here, in a very intense way, that one becomes purified and gives up these sinful desires. And that's interesting. So gradually one becomes purified. Yes. That means that the seed of the sinful activity is gone. That's the point we learned that in the beginning of the 6th canto. That where the 6th canto, and there we have the Shikadev Goswami says, Kesit kevelia bhaktyavas deva parayana. Agamdum vantikastya niramba ivavaskara. Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate force by its rays. And that's interesting. Here it said complete unalloyed devotional service. But here we learn from Narada Muni with this example that just by fixing one's mind on the Lord, one becomes purified. Also purified means that surely these desires go away. So that's what I could say on that. Then we have Nadia Biharipo, you're right. Krishna's enemies were able to think of Krishna so intensely that they got liberated, as Krishna is impartial. Krishna's enemies were able to think of Krishna so intensely that they got liberation. And that shows Krishna is impartial. Yes, everyone who thinks on him becomes purified. That's an important lesson we learn here. Both enemies and devotees who think always of him, they will become purified and get liberation. Liberation means liberation from material desires. Very good point, Nadia Biharipo. So, tomorrow we will start with text 33 and go till the end of this chapter. Tomorrow we will go back also to the 3rd canto, look at the history of Jai and Vijay. And again, very interesting commentaries by Jiva Goswami. He has commented a lot of this on these verses of this 1st chapter, because they are theologically, they are very important. If we perform devotional service, we must understand who Krishna is and how he deals and how he's not affected by these modes of nature, and how he's the well-wisher of everyone. It's important to understand these things deeply. If you understand this philosophy, we can also explain that to others, and so that others also understand Krishna's position as the well-wisher of everyone, that chastising the demons is for their good, giving pleasure to the devotees, protecting the devotees, that it's not partiality. He reciprocates with us, with our meditation, with our conception of him. So Krishna's activities are not easy to understand. But if we understand this philosophy explained in this 1st chapter, we can understand something of Krishna for sure. That and the more we understand Krishna, the more deeper our relationship becomes. Yeah. That to have a deep relationship with someone, you must know the person. And Krishna is, in the Bhagavatam, is revealing here this impartiality of Krishna. That he is the well-wisher of everyone and a friend of everyone. So thank you. We can stop here a little earlier today, and tomorrow we will start with text 33, and also the last verses are also very interesting. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. See you tomorrow, same time.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Bol.
so much.